Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're putting on our policy advisor hats to recommend some major, tech-driven structural changes to the Medicare and Medicaid systems. We're diving deep into a genuinely fascinating blueprint based on the work of Rapush Dorlari, looking at exactly why America's massive public healthcare programs constantly leak billions of dollars, and, much more importantly, how we can build a military-grade integrity system to finally stop it.
Okay, let's kick things off with a quote I absolutely love from quality science pioneer W. Edwards Deming. A bad system will be a good person every time. When we see huge financial losses year after year in programs like Medicare and Medicaid, it's so easy to just point fingers at individual bad actors or scream about fraud. But the reality is a lot deeper than that. Most of these failures are actually just the predictable outcome of poorly designed systems. When you have a system handling trillions of dollars, simply relying on the good intentions of individuals, it just isn't going to cut it. So let's talk numbers, and fair warning, they are staggering. We are looking at $100 billion annual leak in Medicare and Medicaid. For over a decade, combined improper payments have consistently hovered right in this massive range. I mean, really think about that number. That is not just a rounding error. It is normalized instability. It literally represents hundreds of thousands of missed medical appointments or unbilled clinics. But here is the crucial takeaway. This is actually a completely fixable systems engineering failure. And because it's an engineering problem, it has an engineering solution. Here's our roadmap for making the jump from retrospective auditing to real-time oversight. We'll cover the structural accountability gap, look at legislative priorities, dive into prepayment tech, navigate those tricky federal-state partnerships, map out a 36-month pilot, and finally, look at cost projections versus actual annual savings. Let's get into it. Section 1, the structural accountability gap. We really need to start by examining the underlying design flaws that make this massive financial instability seem normal. The thing is, the current oversight system wasn't built all at once. It grew incrementally over decades, just layering new rules on top of old ones, which created a really fragmented and reactive architecture. Think about this. In a system this massive, even a microscopic 1% structural variation wipes out $10 billion. 10 billion. That is the equivalent of an entire mid-sized state's budget just vanishing. Now sure, in a small local clinic, an informal check by the staff might catch a billing mistake. But at the massive scale of Medicare and Medicaid, an unchecked 1% error rate is a literal national financial crisis. It proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that the sheer size of the system has totally outgrown its current inspection architecture. So, how do we fix it? Well, we absolutely have to stop playing a game I like to call pay and chase. Right now, the system just pays out claims quickly and then desperately tries to audit and recover the improper payments months or sometimes even years later. That is pay and chase, and it costs an absolute fortune in administrative overhead, leaving most funds completely unrecovered. We need a paradigm shift to statistical process control, where claims are automatically reviewed before the money ever leaves the Treasury. Moving to Section 2, legislative priorities for oversight. Look, if we want to fix this architecture, we have to secure specific legislative mandates that insulate oversight from all the usual political volatility. We can't just rely on temporary executive orders or whatever the current administration's flavor of the month is. We need the force of law. Lawmakers really have to step up and enact multi-year funding, mandate real-time prepayment screening across all states, and codify a truly independent healthcare integrity board. Right now, oversight initiatives get launched with all this great enthusiasm, only to be quietly defunded the second a political wind shift. By setting up a healthcare integrity board with fixed-term appointments and multi-year funding, we create an architecture of permanence. It guarantees the system is continuously monitored, no matter who happens to be sitting in the Oval Office. All right, Section 3, Tech and Shifting to Prepayment. Let's detail the specific technology requirements we actually need to catch these anomalies before the funds are released. This is where modern data science completely changes the entire game. For the non-technical folks out there, statistical process control, or SPC, basically acts like an aviation black box. It establishes expected baselines to flag unusual deviations instantly. Think about it. Just like commercial airlines constantly monitor thousands of flight data points to prevent accidents before they happen, SPC analyzes historical claims data to understand exactly what normal looks like. If a billing pattern suddenly spikes outside of that normal range, boom, the system automatically pauses the claim for review.
Making this technical transition happen requires 4 pretty strict steps, eventually culminating in the deployment of AI to process multivariable anomaly patterns at speeds no human workforce could ever even dream of matching. First, we unify the data architecture and standardize provider IDs so bad actors can't just hide by crossing state lines. Then, we set our deviation thresholds using a solid 3 years of historical data. Finally, we unleash artificial intelligence on top of that foundation. The AI adapts to new, evolving fraud schemes instantly, meaning the system just gets smarter and smarter every single day. Which brings us to Section 4, Navigating Federal-State Partnerships. Because Medicaid is actually administered by the states, our next major hurdle is coordinating this oversight without completely trampling on state sovereignty. You can have the best tech in the world, but if the federal government just dictates rules from on high, it usually ends up in endless legal battles and political gridlock. The solution here is utilizing a proposed integrity compact. It completely transforms the federal-state dynamic from an adversarial mandate into a genuine collaborative partnership driven by shared savings and technical support. Instead of forcing a one-size-fits-all rule, the federal government establishes a minimum performance floor and then actually gives the states the technical funding and shared analytics to get there. In return, states that hit those goals get to keep a share of the saved money. It perfectly aligns everyone's incentives. Section 5, the 36-month pilot roadmap. Obviously, you don't just flip a switch on a trillion-dollar system and hope for the best. We are going to prove this concept in the real world through a highly structured Sentinel State pilot program. We have a strict 36-month timeline to keep everyone completely accountable, ensuring we build the foundation, thoroughly test the tech, and actually measure success before committing to a massive national rollout. In the first 6 months, we set up independent oversight units and get baseline data in one single representative Sentinel state. By month 12, the AI is up and running. By month 18, we bring in independent evaluators. If and only if the pilot succeeds, then we scale it nationally in years 2 and 3. And we are setting some hard, incredibly objective annual milestones for this pilot. We want to achieve a 15% reduction in the improper payment rate, slash the payment to detection lag time by 50%, and resolve 95% of all flagged claims within just 12 hours. I know healthcare providers often worry about their cash flow being disrupted by new rules, but this 12-hour resolution mandate ensures the system is fast, fair, and unbelievably precise, protecting both financial integrity and legitimate patient care. Finally, Section 6, Cost Projections versus Annual Savings. We have reached the climax of our executive briefing, the undeniable economic argument for action. This is where the policy absolutely 100% justifies the investment. Look, building out this preventative tech infrastructure and fully supporting our state partners requires an estimated annual investment of about $1 billion. Breaking that down, it's roughly $200 to $500 million for the National Statistical Process Control infrastructure, another $100 to $200 million in technical assistance grants for the states, and about $50 to $100 million to operate the Independent Healthcare Integrity Board. But here is the absolute kicker. When you stack that $1 billion implementation cost up against the projected annual savings, you uncover a mind-blowing 13-to-1 return on investment. For roughly $1 billion spent on proper, military-grade architectural oversight, we stand to save around $13 billion every single year. It is hands down one of the most cost-effective structural reforms available to modern policymakers today. Which leaves us with one final, undeniable structural truth to think about. When $13 billion in annual savings are just sitting on the table waiting for us, can we really afford the cost of inaction?